another race?
Yes. So like, if you're black, you should probably have some black blood. I understand like that some people have tried to make the argument of like transnationality. I'm like, I don't care what you do, but if you're asking me, I'm like, have some black blood before you call yourself black. Don't say I identify as black just because you identify with the black experience. That's my opinion.
Okay.
It would help a lot if you knew the history, but it's understandable, if especially with people who are adopted, to not know the history of their culture. But if you're proud to say that you are, even though you don't know a whole bunch about it, and you have like the color and the blood, I'm like, you're doing all right. But after that, that's about as far as I go, because everybody's experience of their race and culture is very different. So I think that people that are mixed help blur the lines that keep cultures divided, and so it enables you in many ways to speak across the color line. Sometimes not effectively, like as far as like Samoans go, it's pretty much been my family, specifically my family, or specifically people who are LDS, but like aren't around any other Polynesians. Those are the easiest Polynesians for me to get along with, because they're like, oh, there's another one. I'm like, yes, so great. And then with my children being half European descent, their situation is unique, because their mom comes from a really racially, how do I say, awesome family. Like, they took one look at me and were like, he works hard. That's all we're really looking at. So on the European side of their family, they're loved. Even though me and her aren't together anymore, I love her family, and I felt that same love and respect from them. And so the upside in our situation is that we've been able to bridge those things easily, because like all the families are loving and respectful. I think the possible example for other people, I'm looking at it from the outside, is that like the more mixed people that you have, the harder it is for your community to hate one side or the other. And I don't even think that's actually the problem. It's more like for everybody to pay attention to stereotypes and think that's how it is.
Yeah.
Because you look at me and think, well, he probably likes this kind of music, this kind of food, and then you end up like, if you ever came over to me in April's when we were together, that's not the case, you know. And if you see April, you would probably think, oh, well, she probably likes these kinds of people and likes these kinds of food, and then it comes, you go to her house and it's like, well, her husband's a half black, half Samoan guy, and there's her yellow kids, But from the outside looking in, you can't make an accurate judgment about somebody by basically looking at their skin. You don't know. But the upside is when you see us together as a family, you can see that like, so that was somebody who was courageous and crossed the color line. But honestly, it's 2020 and it's not so much about courage anymore. It really is about like, I just like you because you're good looking, or I like you because we do the same things,
Yeah.
But not necessarily. When it comes to love and romance, I don't bring race into shit.
Oh yeah.
No, it's not about that. It didn't come from that house, Like my parents came literally from different corners of the earth, and the only thing that they really had in common was their belief in God. Not culturally, completely different. Both of them raised super strict in very churchy homes, but on completely different value systems. So I think that like I love the fact that I'm mixed, and I love the fact that I have kids that are like triple mixed, because like I think that's part of the stuff that's going to make it easier for both sides to talk to each other without saying dumb stereotypical things,
Okay. Yeah. And you mentioned values. So what are some of those? What are some of the values and traditions that you hold and practice that maybe someone from the outside looking in kind of question and may not have as good of knowledge about.
Okay. Well, so from both sides of my family, there's the appreciation for music and the ability to perform it. Okay. Now I don't mean like super top level or nothing like that, but being able to sing is like a very important thing to both sides of my family. The black side with my dad, his mom was a preacher, his dad was a deacon. Even though the church he came from, they don't dance. They don't dance, okay. But then you catch the Holy Spirit, and you're not dancing, you catch the Holy Spirit. Whatever. But they knew how to sing and at least play piano. Yes, when my dad started playing rock and roll at home, my grandma didn't like that, but she's passed on now, so her opinion is with her. I don't mean that in a rude way, but so my dad, he's always been musical. They made us sing when we were little. I hated it then, but then I grew up and then I liked it because I performed for a long time. Samoans, on the other hand, they culturally sing in harmony without being taught what harmony is. And now it's a little bit different with the influence of mostly of American reggae and gospel and hip hop. Like now, Samoan soul singers sing like Black American soul singers, and fight me on that. I'm like, my mom's Samoan. Y'all didn't sing like that. Like you met some black folks, and now you sing the way that you sing.
Yeah.
And so I have that coming from my mom culturally of being able. The first time I sang in harmony was when I was like 4, I think, and I didn't do it very much. I just was like, I'll sing whatever mom's singing, and she was like, you get it, and I was like, I do. So now in the kind of music that I do, I'm like heavy on harmonies, and then so that's the reflection of Samoa in the way that I do music. But yeah, both of those things culturally, music is like the biggest one. I'd say food for Samoans is pretty important. Like knowing what the food is and how to make it, at least like some of like the major dishes. Also because they're just really good. And if you ever have any other Polynesians over and you know how to make that, they're like, yay! So the more, I think, the more correct answer around food is not being able to identify, but actually being able to cook. And cook well, you know, like black people, you will fuss if the food is like, come on, you know, like, don't be making greens that taste like cardboard, you know, like, those are like the big things for me, and I leave it at that because those are things that like they're easier for other people to understand. The music and the food and anything else, I'm like that changes from different, you know, from if you're from a different part of the country, all the rest of the stuff is very malleable, in my opinion.
Right. I guess just to add to that, I don't know if you still have it, but I know when I was younger, you had the lava.
Yeah, I said that.
And so, I mean, now that you've had it for quite a while, and we know what it is, do you still get questioned if you
oh yeah, because we're in the middle of New Mexico, and people are like, you know, of course there's always going to be that guy like, hey Freeman, why are you wearing a dress? And I'm like, now you and I both know what a dress looks like. This is a lava, you know. And I like wearing it to throw people to not really to throw people off, but to have a chance to talk about my Samoan culture, you know, because people don't know, and also it gives me a chance to like kind of confront some gender issues about like what kind of clothing should a guy be wearing, and then that gives me a chance to also sometimes engage in discussions about the LGBT community, and like, you know, I'm like, we're not. This isn't a challenge to manhood. This isn't about me being gay. It's not about a fa finger thing. This is literally like dress wear for like Samoan men, Tongan men, and Fijian men. Like if you go to the South Pacific, you'll see cops wearing this. And so the fun part is when they're like, what? And I post a picture of The Rock, and I'm like, well, there's him wearing one, and here's a Fijian policeman wearing one. And they're just like, oh, and I'm like, could it be there's a wider world outside of Albuquerque? This is how they. We're talking about the police. This is how they, the white people, show us that they're still in control and that we're never going to get anywhere and that we will never be as good as them, even though it's 2020. And he's like, it has been like this since I was a child. And he's like, this is just, when the rioting and the protest stuff started, he's like, that's us saying unequivocally that this is wrong and it's worth fighting for. And the thing is that, like, what a lot of people have twisted in their heads about this is that it somehow has to do with like being unpatriotic, or that the monolith, like the actual. I'm never big on a lot of activist organizations because they're very fractious and whatnot. But Black Lives Matter it's also a statement. It's not just the movement, right? It's saying that, like, you can't just kill us with impunity because you've done that since you owned us. And this is just another reminder in the minds of because the other part of the discussion, these police officers that do that, they're a part of another movement that they don't think they are, and that's white supremacy. You know, and that's a hard one for a lot of them to swallow because they're like, well, I'm not racist. I'm like, you can say you're not racist and then do really racist shit. For instance, putting your knee on the neck of a man who's obviously choking. You know, when somebody says, I can't breathe, and you continue to choke them. You know, when you get the house wrong, you don't identify yourself, and then you fucking shoot somebody how many times while they're in bed. And we're telling these stories now, but this has been the fact of Black existence in the United States since we got here. That you could kill us and get away with it. And that's what the movement is saying. We are no longer taking that. Or at least continue to have the historical viewpoint that, like, this is wrong. Like, it's not, you know, they trot out Martin Luther King and they're like, well, didn't he? And then they're like, if President Obama, I'm like, one President Obama. You guys killed Martin Luther King. All right? So, like, let's not get that twisted. Don't think that it's all good just because all these white presidents, one black guy.
Yeah.
And I remember this was interesting. I was talking to a family not long after President Obama got elected, and the dude was like, he's like, okay, I need to ask you guys something. And it was me and Bishop Mario. And he's like, are you guys? Is it okay now? Are you guys still mad? I mean, you got your president. Are you guys still mad? And I was in my head. I looked over at Mario, and he was like, "I'll take this one," because I mean, the dude didn't even understand like how insulting and how white. And when I say white, I don't mean like Caucasian people.
Oh, right.
I mean people who think it's okay to take land from Indians with lies, who think it's okay to own black people, who think it's okay to have institutions that shut out people because it's a guy who likes other men. That, to me, is whiteness. All of you motherfuckers. Sometimes I think about it and I get pretty ticked because I'm just like, you all had a choice. You know, you had a choice. Don't tell me I was the product of my time. I'm like, everybody who's had sex knows what having sex is. And you probably have a pretty good idea if they're into it or not. Okay? Everybody who's ever been hit knows what pain feels like. Most of us know what it's like to have our feelings hurt, right? By either, by being maybe insulted by, just a passerby on the street, or being told by like a lover that they no longer want to be with you. Just within these things here, that's enough for you to know what it is generally like for another human being. And if you can willfully say, I should own you, when you know what all these things are, you're an asshole.
Yeah.
Because you know better. You know that like nobody wants to be forced to have sex. You know that nobody wants to be like put down. And you know that people don't want to get hit for no reason. And here you are saying that, well, I'm a product of my times, so it's okay for me to do this. No. None of them get a pass. None of real shit. But what's everybody, what are all the groups doing? They're trying to tell each other how to protest correctly, or like, you haven't done enough of the work, you haven't educated yourself, did you read the right books? And I'm like, stop cops from killing us and get rid of the president. Let's talk about that. Don't talk about nothing else. Don't tell white people how to protest with us. Don't tell them how to be allies. Like, if they come, let them come in. As they stay, they will start to understand what they can and can't do. If they start to co-opt, you just tell them, y'all, you need to sit the fuck back. This isn't about you. This isn't that time. Like, if you feel bad that you can't be leadership in this thing, feel bad about it, but shut up and sit down. this is Black voices time. You know, and they can be told that. You can educate people in movements and stuff like that. But but don't just reject them because like they don't look like. You know, let them come in and learn. That's kind of how I feel about it.
All right, and so the final question that I have is just kind of a follow-up to the Black Lives Matter question, which is, so I don't know if you knew, but the Black Lives Matter movement was founded by two females, one of which was queer.
Yeah.
I found out in a research for another class, and so she said, from what I read in the research, it was founded not just to benefit blacks, but also to benefit the LGBTQ plus community. And so, since you kind of touched on that, would you like to expand on maybe how that has also helped, how BLM has also helped the LGBTQ plus community?
I think anything that brings all of that to the front, especially because it's like when you talk about like who's like the biggest loser in the game of the American dream, and I would definitely say trans people of color. Okay, at the people who are going to get the most ridicule and serve the least are trans people of color, right? And so Black Lives Matter is like, no, push that up front, dude. Trans Lives Matter, push that up front. What's that going to happen without it? Maybe. To the degree that it's happening right now, doubt it. But the Black Lives Matter being around for as long as it's been around, it's in my mind and experience, it's been another catalyst for these things to pop up. Like it's